Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble and prayerful salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, we took a little break for a couple of weeks, but it's a pleasure and a blessing to continue this journey again. And we'll do a little recap and then take the story of Sai Ram Katha forward. So let us begin this evening with our prayer, and I request all of you to please join me in that. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. Our story had taken a beautiful turn after Bhagwan Ram's auspicious marriage with Mother Sita. And on the way, we saw how the procession met with Bhagwan Parshuram, who in the divine play had a role to play with the Lord to offer him yet all his earnings as a culmination of his earthly sojourn, and then departs as a retirement age, you could say, when his mission on the earth was complete. So we saw that beautiful interactions. I think it was a very unique moment when in the same era, two avatars met and transferred, so to say, Lord Parshuram transferred his role, authority, and position to Lord Ram, Bhagwan Ram, and bid farewell, retired from all his earthly responsibilities. And we saw the beauty of the Shiva's Dhanush and how it played a beautiful role in this union of two avataric personalities. And now the procession is moving towards Ayodhya. The beauty is when you see such grandeur, when you see such interactions, the intensity is quite high. And I can not help but recall that anytime Bhagwan Baba would depict, he allow us to experience his magnanimity or his power of avatarhood, it would make us stunned. I remember seeing him cure a paralyzed lady in front of us. And the cure was simply a command. It was purely a command from Bhagwan, which says that here I am, get up and walk. And the paralyzed lady was cured. At that time, the energy which we all experienced was amazing. And that energy was so high that most of his children sitting around, we were speechless, stunned, and we couldn't breathe. And then Swami only had to crack a joke to lighten the mood and make us laugh. It is that moment which gives us the glimpse that when Avatar shows himself, he gives us the opportunity to experience his magnanimity, his grandeur. It is sometimes not easy and sometimes impossible for many to even witness that glory. So, what we witnessed two avatars meeting, Bhagwan Parshuram and Bhagwan Ram, I'm sure the event must have been very powerful and it must have been very, uh, I would say, too much for many people to handle. And that was depicted by Bhagavan in a very subtle way when he says, Dashrath was worried. He was stunned. He didn't know whether he would ever see everybody alive next moment because the way Bhagavan Parshuram was serious and upset about things. But he was so proud that, look at the Maya of Lord. He felt proud of Ram, the way Ram maneuvered Bhagavan Parshuram. And from Dashrath's perspective, his son did a great job. And that is how Dashrath was kind of convinced and pleased about the whole event unfolding in front of him. And Ram, on top of it, comes and says that Bhagwan, Father, it is because of your blessing and grace that we are able to do all of this. So now your army is waiting for your command so that we can proceed to Ayodhya. And this is exactly, and Dashrath is very happy and he says, yes, go ahead. And the whole caravan then moves towards Ayodhya. So it's a very beautiful journey which we witness how subtly Bhagavan conveys that it is not easy for anybody for that matter to comprehend Avatar, to understand what is happening in that era, in that mood. And then the story moves to Ayodhya. Now, in this episode, we would like to draw everybody's attention from the story from a perspective of this great personality known as Dashrath, the father of Avatar, Sri Ram. A man who surpassed everybody, all his forefathers, with his character, with his prowess, with his abilities. He was a magnanimous king, a great emperor. He ruled with just. He, as we have seen already, in that time the age was longer, so he must have lived around 60 odd years, 1,000 years. And he lived with a perfect lifestyle. So now let us explore this avatar. And for that, let me welcome my brother Rangaraju. Raju is here. Sai Ram Raju. Raju, are you able to? Oh, his net is again fluctuating. So, Dashrath, a great personality, and we need to understand how he, was and what he did. So, to understand what made him deserve all of that, and so if you look at Dashrath, the name itself connotes one who has conquered his 10 senses. The literal meaning of Dashrath is Dash is 10 and Rath are the horses which are depicted as Indriyas, the senses. So we have the 10 senses. The one who reigns these 10, this this person who reigns this 10 senses is known as Dashrath. And this master of senses had acquired such an ability that he was able to even support the devatas, the gods. And look at how he managed the whole show, that he fought for devatas. He could carry his army to Swarg and fight there. He ruled the whole earth at one point of time. And we have heard the story of how he controlled Ravan sitting at Ayodhya itself when his fame was spreading. And Ravan felt that, he should not bow down to Dashrath. So instead, he sent his envoy, which we have narrated the story, and asking Dashrath to accept him as superior. Dashrath shoots an arrow from Ayodhya and locks him up in Lanka. And he releases him only when his missionary goes back and conveys the message. And Ravan has to say sorry. Such a caliber of a personality, Dashrath. He lived through a life, but unfortunately, look at the mistakes which people do and how, when we analyzed his life, the only lacuna, the only gap which we find is his attachment. More, as we say. Attachment first towards his wives, then towards his sons. Because he was deprived of a son for a long time, so that had turned into a great deep desire. So when he was cursed that he would also die the same way as he has, killed that boy and his parents died in the agony of their child, he in fact took it as a blessing. He said, if I were to die with an agony of my sons, then I must have sons. So he took his curse, the parents' curse, as blessings. But look at how the blessing fructified. So at the end, Dashrath faces the same story. When he realizes his mistake, he realizes that how the karmic effect comes back to him, and he had to leave his physical body in the agony, in pain from his deprivation of his sons. All the goodness of Dashrath and only one major negative element which he allowed, entertained in his life, was more, the attachment. And because of which Dashrath had to suffer. And that moh became such that even being a father of God did not help him. So it's a very strange and a very strong lesson that we can learn from here, that everything can be looked at from a physical term. When you look at it, we realize that even if God is sitting with you, even if you are a father of God, you are destined to be, liberated. Yet you can get trapped if we entertain even a single negative element in our life. Dashrath had control over senses. He was even called Rajarishi. Like Janak, he was also a Rajarishi. Yet he had to undergo this kind of suffering. And ultimately, realize the folly. But it was too late. So when we look at the whole sequence of Dashrath, it's amazing that how destiny works. But when you look at it spiritually, there is also another element of Dashrath you can see, that when a role is given to you to play, even though you have no fault of yours, many times with Bhagwan's presence also we felt the same thing, that why did Swami scold me? Why he's not talking to me? Why Bhagwan is talking to X? Why is he not to me? Or why is he, sometimes Bhagwan would come and like scold you for no reason, apparently. We didn't realize that time we were very focused on what I did, why should he talk to me, or why he didn't talk to me. So in that very one-on-one situations, our perspective was very limited whenever we try to understand the implications of avataric action. But when I look at Ramayana and listen to Bhagwan, I realize after a certain level of, you know, association with God, you may be, he may raise us to a level, I should say, that we may become eligible for certain reactions or certain lessons which are not in the purview of karmic cycle of life and death. For example, Mother Kekai, which we'll look at it very soon now, how she conducted. So we look at Dashrath, father of God, Dashrath, controller of all 10 senses, who had powers unimaginable, who could do anything, and he was a just king, an emperor, who ruled the earth. All of that is right. And it is very strange to see that he succumbed to attachment, and to such an extent that his logic stopped working. Is it possible? Sometimes you wonder, these two things don't go hand in hand. When you have all of that goodness, how can you allow this small negative attribute to even flourish or even take a thought in your system? But there comes a very spiritual thought and understanding that avatar puts people who are eligible to take up more hard roles. And one such role was Dashrath. Dashrath led a very perfect life. So when they reach Ayodhya, you can see that whole culmination of Dashrath's life, in which he has done everything possible for a good emperor, who conducts in a befitting manner, even for gods. They worship him, they adore him, they love him, and he gave protection to everybody around. That king deserved all the goodness, and that is why he was probably pampered by the Lord himself, who became his son. And he enjoyed. All the children, all the four sons were dear to him, and he lived a very beautiful, happy life till that moment. So when he saw the marriage of Ram and all the children, it was an ecstatic mode. So when you travel in that ecstasy, when you live in that ecstasy, there's a very different outlook. There's a different approach towards life. And that is how they reach Ayodhya. And ceremony is also very highlighted in this. When they reach Ayodhya, the mothers are already there and they have prepared a welcome treat for the newly wed. They receive them with all the protocols of Aarti and all that. And then these four couples, they retire to their apartments. And, as they say, and they lived happily ever after. Unfortunately, that ever after was very short. Immediately after that, it's a very beautiful thing when they were settling down. As we have seen, Bharat's uncle or mother Kaikeyi's brother had come because his father, Kaikeyi's father, was not feeling well. He was of a mature age, so they wanted to just make him happy, and he had come to request that my father was missing his grandson, so it would be nice for him to visit the grandfather. And now, since he got married and maternal grandfather is not even aware of the ceremony, so it would be wonderful if Bharat and his wife accompanies the uncle back home, and that would give the father a greater joy. And his logic was very good, his presentation was very humble, and Dashrath consulted with his wives, and all the mothers felt it's a good idea. This way, even the couple would get a break, and the grandfather would be happy. Bharat, when he is commanded to leave, he requests that Shatrughan to be allowed to accompany him. As we have seen, Bharat and Shatrughan never separated. They were together all the time. And when Bharat made this request, they all gladly agreed. So Bharat, Shatrughan, and their wives, Shrutkirti and Manvi, they both went along to Kekai Raj. So now these people have left. Now in Ayodhya, you have Ram and Lakshman with their wives, Sita and Urmila. And they are they are actually now with the mothers and father. They are settled well. In fact, Ram and Lakshman are also supporting the father. But Bhagwan doesn't fail to mention that Dashrath is missing Bharat. It's a very interesting observation, and that you realize that in all of this, Bhagwan is mentioning that Dashrath was missing even Bharat and Shatrughan. Again, that element of attachment which we are talking about is visible. So it was not that attachment only for Ram. He had, that attribute of attachment is there. So when you have attachment, then you can attach with anything. So here his attachment was getting visible towards his own sons. And he keeps inquiring about them, and he sometimes even wonders that why did he send them away? But as protocols demand, he had the control, he could not say no, and things were going on. Till one day, what happened? And that is the beauty. And before I jump into that section of what happened, I notice Bhagwan at the same time, on a parallel note, is describing Ram. And the qualities of Ram that he is depicting now are very much different from what he depicted when Ram was a student or as a child. Here, Bhagwan talks about Ram's attribute and focus towards others. He explains how caring Ram was towards everybody, how accessible Ram was to everybody, that any citizen of the country could approach Ram and talk to them. Many elders felt very comfortable in sharing their heart with Ram. And Ram somehow had a unique ability to show that he has empathy and he could understand their needs, requirements, and their situation much before even they could express it. So this became a Ram's a very unique attribute. So when you look at it like that, Bhagwan explains Ram in a very different way. The caring for all, empathy towards everybody. He does not even need others to express fully. As soon as he sees them, he understands them. And there is another beautiful quality that he can keep secrets. So, and this secret is not just a friendly secret to keep. It is like suppose Ram had to plan something, an activity. And this lesson, I think all the managers and everybody can learn that Ram had an ability to plan an activity. If he sees a need, he will plan it. And till he executes, nobody would know about it. So he had an ability, a very strong and a very unique ability to keep secret his plan and programs before they are executed or even prepared for others to see. So he would kind of give a surprise to everybody that Ram not only understood the need, Ram not only could decipher what exactly needs to be done, but he even planned the whole execution and didn't let anybody know about it. A beautiful and a unique ability. And one more he said about, there are many. So another highlight was soft and loving speech. I remember Bhagwan teaching me this hard lesson that he said, you may not be able to, oblige everybody every time, but you can always speak obligingly. And this is a very important lesson of my life because when I look at, the way we deal with people, the way we are approaching, we realize that this little lesson of Bhagwan that you cannot oblige everybody every time, but you can always speak obligingly can resolve a lot of issues and give you amazing results without getting into complications. In fact, just to make a story short, I remember once I had a habit of going to Puttaparthi to see Bhagwan every year. And once started working, uh, it so happened that before the year could end, I had changed a job. And then I got into a new job and I couldn't take a leave immediately. So I had to, like 6 months passed, and it was almost a year and a half more I had not seen, and I was kind of feeling restless about it. And I wanted to go and see. One day I got really filled up, and just making a story short, I kind of gave my letter to my boss who refused it, and I got upset about it. And I just threw a letter at him and he said, accept it or leave it. I'm resigning if you don't accept it, but I'm gone. And he couldn't understand that what is so much that he has to go to an ashram and that too for a month. And but I left. And fast forwarding, when my time came to return, which was after a couple of months, Bhagwan called me and actually he reprimanded me and he said, you fought with your boss. And I was trying to justify that Swami, he didn't give me leave. I wanted to come to you. And Bhagwan said, no, you didn't ask him properly. He said, you demanded leave and you triggered his ego and he got into that ego. It is not right. You could have politely asked him properly. So it was like, and then he made this statement. He says, you cannot oblige everybody, but you can always speak obligingly. And your mistake was that you did not speak obligingly. And that lesson was very strong for me because when I came back, as per his command, I got into the same job again. And then I had went to Canada. I started living in Canada, and there again the same story happened. And that time I recalled Bhagwan's words, and I kept asking for leave without confronting, in the most polite manner possible. You can say very diplomatically. And I succeeded. In fact, I not only got a leave, but I got my job also. So I realized that, that lesson which I had learned was so important, that speak obligingly. I didn't know what these lessons meant in our practical life, but when I look at Ramayana now, I am able to put them together. So Bhagwan says one of the most beautiful attribute or qualities of Ram was that he was soft and loving in his speech. That whatever he spoke very lovingly to everybody. Nobody was hurt. Even when he was scolding somebody, the person who's getting scolded would have appreciated the scolding and would have liked it because it was for his improvement. He never hurt anybody from his speech. So he taught us that, that's how to work smartly, even with your actions and your performances. Now, when you look at all these characters and attributes that Bhagavan has highlighted, and I have shared few of the major ones, the caring for all, empathetic towards everybody, understanding their feelings and needs even before they can express it, and keen interest in the state of affairs. Like, he takes keen interest in politics, in understanding the requirement of a king, and so that he can support his father. He was a great help to his dad in that manner, and he kept secrets, that when execution part happened, nobody even could imagine that Ram had not only understood it, he had even executed it. He has planned everything, so kept secret, and he had a wonderful, loving speech. All these attributes, when you put it together, they are the attribute of a good leader. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a ruler, if you want to be a manager, I would say these are some prime qualities which every leader must inculcate. And Bhagwan has very beautifully and strategically highlighted these things at this junction in Ramayana. So when he's talking about the whole transition of Bharat and Shatrughan gone, Ram and Lakshman are in Ayodhya, helping and supporting his father, and that time, all these attributes of Ram are getting prominent. They are getting evolved. And people are able to see them and they are able to appreciate Ram. So, in their heart of hearts, everybody started looking up to Ram as their future king. This is the beauty of narration, that how you prepare and how this whole story has been building up. Till one day that incident happened, which changed the whole story. It so happened that Dashrath, it seems, was at night, he woke up from his sleep as he felt thirsty. And when he turned towards the jar of water, he realized the water was not there in his tumbler. So he turned towards the jar to pour the water into the tumbler. And while he was doing that, he noticed that his hand was shivering. The grip, the grip with which he was holding the tumbler was shaky. Now you can say a 60,000 years old person would no doubt, but we have seen Ravan's age, we have seen others, so even mothers were still active. So you can imagine that that age was not the main consideration for Dashrath to feel like that. But when you are a spiritual being performing your duties, these indicators are very important. because you know exactly now the transition time has come. And in our Vedic lifestyle, the next phase of Vanaprastha would have come. So Dashrath is aware that now my time to give up my formal responsibilities are coming. He realizes that now the body is not responding the way it used to. Can you imagine how sensitive Dashrath must have been? How detached Dashrath must have been? So it's a very, I would say, a very beautiful contrast in the character of Dashrath that we are noticing. That on one hand, he shows extreme attachment, more towards his sons. On right at the next moment, he's showing extreme detachment from the world. So a person, a Dashrath, who had conquered his senses, who had lived a very magnanimous life, who could control everything, was attached to his sons but detached to everything else. Isn't that beautiful? That his attachment was only for God, only for his sons. In sons, he saw God, probably. And that is what became, in a physical realm, his binding, and from spiritual realm, his liberation. So, beauty of Dashrath, again highlighted, is that Dashrath, the moment he realized that his hand was shaking and he was not the same Dashrath which was before, he develops vairagya right at that moment. How many of us, we want to do a medical checkup and we want to get ourselves, medications and operations to keep running, but we don't allow the nature to take over. We don't want to flow with the nature. When the pace of the nature tells slow down, we should learn to slow down. Then only we can stop at our destination. If the train is running, when the destination comes, the train had to stop, slow down a little before, so it can nicely park at the station. But if we start gassing it up, putting coal, putting more power into it, with the hope that the train should continuously run, 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 so neither the purpose of the train is solved, nor the destination will ever be appreciated. So here, the only people who are spiritually inclined, who are spiritually bent, would be able to appreciate Dashrath's move, or anybody for that matter in that era, who had that strength, the willpower to take up sannyas, to take up vanaprastha, and say, now my time up. This phase is done, now let me explore next phase of my life. It was not as if they have given up life. It was not as if they wanted to commit, suicide, or they're disinterested in life. But it's a saturation which leads them from one avastha to another, one ashram to another. So this is the beauty of Dashrath, that the moment he realizes the weakness has come, he says, now time to give. And then he comes back next day, he calls for a special meeting, a special council, in which all his gurus, all the dignitaries, eminent citizens of the nation, every officials, they are invited. And there Dashrath begins by narrating his incidents of the night. He narrates to everybody what had happened exactly, and thus making a case that now he feels the time has come to let go, to give the reins of this great kingdom to the next generation. And very humbly he gets up with folded hands, turned towards his guru Vasisht, and he says, I, submit, I volunteer the name of Ram as the person who can take over. They call it Yuvraj. It's like to be the king, the designated prince, Yuvraj. And the whole gathering starts screaming Sadhu, Sadhu. Sadhu, in a literal translation, means auspicious. It also means the people who wear orchid robe and who have renounced the world. But sadhu word is also referred as auspiciousness, beauty, blessings. So everything blessing, everything auspicious is sadhu. So everybody starts shouting sadhu, sadhu. There's a joy, and even the ministers get up and second the thought of the king. They all go and tell that yes, you're absolutely fine. The, the Prince Ram is very capable to take over your position. And they start narrating and describing Ram with all the glorious words. And they're very happy that such a decision has come. Many even go on to say that, we are fortunate that we lived under your rule, and now we are fortunate to see Ram as our ruler. Vashish turned towards, Dashrath turned towards the sage Vashisht, the Guru, and Guru also gets up and he says, auspicious is a very noble thought, Dashrath. But he raises an objection. See, that's a very beautiful thing. He says, Dashrath, your thought is right. See, this is where the Guru's role is important. The buddhi, the intellect, has to play his role. So Vashisht says to him, Dashrath, your thought is noble, and it is expected from such a personality like you to think in this manner and to depict detachment and to lead with example. So I'm not surprised by your decision. But I have a question, I have a thought, a reservation, that why hurry? This is too abrupt. We don't need to rush. You have raised this point, it's very good. And we have to celebrate this transition also. And the problem is, the marriage was also done in a rush. So we couldn't invite everybody, and there are many relatives, friends, and family who got upset, who really felt bad that Ram marriage happened and they were not invited. Imagine the Kaikeyi's parents, Kaushalya, nobody's parents were invited. So in-laws were not invited. Many kings who were the fast friends of Dashrath were not invited because all of this happened in a much hurry. So Vashish says, Dashrath, what is the hurry? Even Bharat and Shatrughna are not here. So I think we should wait. But Dashrath says that when anything auspicious has happened, my heart doesn't say that I should wait. And I'm sure nobody will mind. They will all be happy for Ram to be coronated like this. But he says, yes, but we should at least invite them. Then even the citizens and the dignitaries of the court, they get up and they start justifying Dashrath's decision, and they say that, look, it is okay if we rush, because auspicious days are very few and tomorrow is the auspiciousness, so we must do it tomorrow. And Ram becoming a designated prince and a future king is acceptable to all, so nobody would mind. So when all the courtesans, all the ministers, and all the dignitaries of the state, everybody started countering, then Vashisht gave up. And he says, okay, if all of you feel so, let the majority rule. And so he allowed his decision to be overridden, and he said, okay. Then Dashrath, look at what Dashrath did. Dashrath plays a different card. He turned towards the citizens and he says, I'm glad that you all agree with me, but the enthusiasm that you have shown for Ram to become the successor has created a doubt in my heart that the moment I announced that I want to step down, you all were very happy. Should I conclude that there was something wrong in my rulingship? Was there something not right the way I conducted? Have I not been a good king? Have I done something that has displeased all of you? Have I not been up to the mark to serve all of you and keep your happiness uppermost in my mind? So, what mistake have I done? Please tell me. I do not want to go with making so many people unhappy. So, let me repent. So, please tell me, what mistake have I done? Look at the humility of Dashrath also, but at the same time, a very shrewd king who wanted to make sure that the transition is still happening based on merit and not because of some pressure or not because that the previous ruler made some mistakes. So he wanted to make sure that if when Ram comes in, if he has made some mistakes which has created any negativity in the population, that can be highlighted and rectified. Look at what a beautiful, auspicious way of ruling. And so when Dashrath repeats himself in this manner, all the citizens and the dignitaries of the court, they get up and say, no, no, Dashrath, please don't think like that. We are blessed. We are fortunate to have a ruler like you. It is indeed our good fortune that we are born in this country and we are under your protective care. And you have not only led us, but you have made your own forefathers very proud. So there is no iota of doubt about your capability and your leadership and your personality as a king, as an emperor. However, as you recommended, and we appreciate that now, since you feel that you are old enough to move on, we respect that. And we can't help but admire your son Ram, who is equally competent, who literally fills your shoes, in fact, has won our hearts. So we are not displeased by you, we are overly pleased by you. But now, since you recommended Ram's name, that has filled us with joy and ananda. And that ananda makes us request you that Shigram, Shubhasya Shigram, that let that glad tidings happen in our lifetime. Let us all witness our beautiful Ram becoming the king. And that is why you see the excitement on our faces, in our voices. It is not because we are not happy with you, but we are more happy, excited now to see the next generation of Raghukul who is going to lead us, govern us with equal grandeur, care, and beauty. This answer pleases Dashrath. And Dashrath is very happy. Then Dashrath says another. He says, I appreciate and thank you all. And I'm grateful to all of you for being so generous and so honest about it. But I would think that in excitement, we should not make any wrong decision. Probably subconsciously, Dashrath had been reminded of, you know, his weakness of attachment. But look at how the manifestations are happening. So Dashrath says, I would request that you all can take time, probably a day, to think it over. Then come back and give me your decision, and I shall obey, and I shall do exactly the way the majority feels. But the crowd goes again crazy and they say that no, Dashrath, we don't need time to think. Let us go ahead and do it. So when these things happen, Dashrath is very pleased. Imagine how fast, when destiny has to act, it can change things overnight in a split second. Dashrath then sends for Ram. Ram and Lakshman both arrive at the court in front of all. And Dashrath then asks his Guru Vashisht to tell. And Guru Vashisht describes the whole thing which has happened here and the decision to Ram. And look at how Ram responds. See, if you and I get an opportunity that, somebody says, hey, you have been appointed as a king or, a boss of a company, we'll be too excited and we immediately will start saying, thank you very much. I'm glad that you realized sooner than later that my importance, so we go from that angle. Here, Ram, when he listens to that, he immediately turns towards his father and says, Father, I'm grateful that you thought that I'm worthy of such responsibility. And being the eldest son, I know that I have to take it one day or other. But I do not see any rush, any urgency. By God's grace, my father, you are in perfect health. And I'm more than happy to assist you for many, many years to come. So what is the rush in making me a designated prince, a Yuvraj? And Vashisht intervenes and he says, Dashrath, Ram, as we told you, Dashrath has realized that time has come. His age is also coming. So it is important that this transition happen, and it's a protocol. One must not object to this. You have to become the designated prince, the Yuvraj. So you should accept it. So Ram says, yes, I accept. But what is the rush? My dear brother Bharat and Shatrugna are not here. So at least let's wait for them. And this is going to be next joyful event. So he again conveys the same counters that even our, father-in-laws are not invited. So they should be here. My grandparents, maternal grandparents are not here. They should be invited. And many of our kings and friends who are, who will be happy to join us, they should be invited. So what is the rush? And then Vashisht has to intervene. And Vashisht tells Ram that, Ram, don't you think we would have deliberated all that questions that you have raised? I have raised myself these objections and we have deliberated them in detail. But my dear son, The conclusion which we have arrived is that everybody wants you to become the designated prince. Everybody wants this transition to happen now, and you must accept without obstructing the destiny. Bhagwan also very beautifully, subtly indicates the hint which Vashisht gives to Ram, and Ram says, and Dashrath conveys to Ram that Ram, your logics are right, and I have already countered them, I have already, discussed them. So now this is a destiny working. So do not interfere. Do not obstruct the destiny. He puts it in a very beautiful words, and Ram bows down to him and he says, as you wish. Immediately the messages are sent across. In fact, Ram himself goes to the mother Kaushalya. Lakshman runs first actually to mother Kaushalya, informing her about this decision. He's excited. He's on the cloud 7 or 9, you can say. Kaushalya is ecstatic, obviously. Thus Ram goes and you know gives a hug to mother and puts his head in her lap. Kaushalya says, Ram, such a good news. You don't seem excited. And Ram very politely says, Mother, it is destiny. The role I have to play, I accept. But I feel bad my brothers are not here. And I'm missing Bharat and Shatru. And that time, other mother also comes in, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. Actually, Sumitra comes in, and they say, Ram, Lakshman is here as representing Shatrugna, and I'm sure Bharat and Shatrugna will be too happy to hear this news. They won't mind. But you must accept and respect the command of the people and the king and go ahead. So, this is the scene which is happening in the same night. And look at how each mother is handling it. Kaushalya is calm, excited at the same time. She is composed, but she is delighted that she's going to see her son being crowned prince. Sumitra is also excited and happy because she has already realized about Ram and she's happy that her sons are along with him in the service. Now the story moves to Kaikeyi, the mother, and that is the beauty. And we all know this story, but it's worth mentioning the sequence of event, how it has unfolded. Ram, let me finish with the story and then I'll tell you about Ram and Kaikeyi. So they say Kaikeyi is unaware. The messenger has not reached Kaikeyi, but who reaches there is Manthara. Manthara was, so to say, a maid of Kaikeyi, but she was an elderly maid who had who had actually nurtured Kaikeyi from her birth. So she was like a motherly maid to Kaikeyi, and she cared for Kaikeyi like anything. She loved her, she cared for her, and she only looked for the happiness and benefit of Kaikeyi. That was Manthara. So Manthara, when she was coming towards the Kaikeyi's palace, she sees everybody rejoicing and happy, and she inquires and she gets to know these details. Somehow it does not resonate with her, and she rushes towards Kaikeyi. And she goes and breaks this news in a very dramatic and a very loud manner to Kaikeyi. That Kaikeyi, misfortune has fallen on you. Kaikeyi, I have tried to protect you from all the bad omens all my life. But now I think the time has come when you need to take some action, or else you will always remain a lowly queen and probably a maid in the future. All these negative thoughts she is now feeding Kekai. And Kekai very bluntly shuts her off. She says, "What is wrong with you? What is that news that has disturbed you so much that you're talking like that?" And Kekai Manthara breaks the news to her and she says, suddenly, for some odd reason, Maharaj Dashrath has announced Ram to be crowned as crown prince, the future king. Kekai is ecstatic hearing this news. She starts dancing. She's so happy. And, like a child to her mother, she says, "Mantra, what is wrong with you? That you should tell me this story with so much of drama. Don't you know that this is such a beautiful news you have given me?" And she starts throwing jewelry. She gives her necklace to her. She's so happy about it. And then starts the whole drama of Mantra. When Mantra slowly, slowly starts corrupting her thought. Another great lesson to hear. And then we know how Manthara corrupts Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi then goes to the Kop Bhavan, they call it, a house made for expressing your anger. It's an anger house, wherein if the wife or somebody goes there, it's an indicator that that person is unhappy and serious issue has happened. So when she goes there, and then the story of Dashrath coming to her and all that starts happening. But let's pause here and I'll tell you something of behind the scenes story as shared by Bhagwan. It seems a day before this, Ram goes to Mother Kekai at night. Mother is very happy to receive Ram. From the very birth, all the three queens, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kekai, they have lived like sisters. They have been an amazing queens, amazing wives, and amazing sisters. They have shared everything, respected each other. So there has been not even a single reported incidence of disagreement, of anything negative about these three queens. And Kekai was a very calibered lady. She was a warrior herself. She was like an acting princess. So she was much smarter in that aspect. But even then, they lived in a very, very loving manner. And when they had children, somehow Ram got the precedence over everybody. We know very well that when Kekai was married to Dashrath, Kekai's father, as a precaution that his daughter should not be treated as a third wife or as you know as just somebody, and her future was protected, her children protection future was protected, and Dashrath was getting married to her only with the hope of getting a child, because even after two marriages, Dashrath had no issues. So Kekai's father had put conditions to Dashrath that obviously when you know that my daughter must be treated like a queen and she must be respected as the queen. Dashrath says that my Patrani is Kaushalya, that the first queen, and that cannot be replaced. But Kekai will always get her due respect, and that I promise you. His second condition was that Kekai's child, when born, must be the next king, must be considered to be the king of Ayodhya. And Dashrath had even, without thinking at that time, had given him his word that sure, because Dashrath anyways had no children from any other wives. So he was hoping for a son, and obviously that thought was that if she gets the son, obviously that son will be the king. So this was a verbal agreement between Dashrath and the king of Kekai, that is Kekai's father. And we know that during a war between, you know, Devtas and Danavs, Kekai had got his two boons, and that again Dashrath gave it in his excitement, and he even gave that condition that okay, whenever you are ready, you can ask. See, there's another mistake. A king should never do that, but he did it. So this was a mistake, or you can say a destiny which had worked like that, and that is what got utilized now. So, giving this backdrop, Ram comes to meet Kekai, a mother who has loved Ram more than Bharat, a mother who has treated Ram before everybody, a mother whom Ram considers the best mother, a mother whose love was unquestionable, a mother who could do anything for Ram. Such a mother was Kekai. So if we have to put that in a category of comparison between Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kekai, who loved Ram most? It would be Kekai first. So imagine such a caliber of a mother was Kekai. And the story goes that Ram goes to meet this mother one night before this whole thing episode unfolded. And Ram is sitting with her, she's feeding him, they're having a beautiful mother and child moment. And then Ram says, Ma, today I have come to ask you for a favor. And Kekai looks at Ram with a smile and surprise. Says, Ram, why so much hesitation? You are verily my life. Your wish will be fulfilled. Ask. Ram says, Mother, what I am going to ask or what I have come to ask is not easy, is not something simple. It is life changing. Kekai said, So what, Ram? If it makes my Ram happy, I am more than happy to do it. Tell me, what do you want? Ram again apparently hesitates and he says, Mother, before you commit, I want you to understand that what I have come to ask for can even bring bad name to you. For generations, people would hate you. They will curse you. You may not even be looked upon as a good queen, a good mother. And Kekai again smiles at Ram and says, Ram, if what you're going to ask me is so important for you that I have to take bad name, I have to commit for a lifelong suffering, I happily accept that too. But my son, you should not carry any hardship, any pain in your heart. As long as I am here, you should not carry this burden. So share freely. Tell me what is bothering you. After Ram has in many ways trying to convey and prepare Mother Kaikeyi and get her approval that she is not saying it emotionally. She understands the challenges, she understands the hardship, she understands the seriousness of this commitment. And when Kaikeyi very firmly announces to Ram that Ram, I am ready. You tell me what you want, son. And for you, even if it gives you a moment of happiness, I am ready to sacrifice my whole life. And then Ram says that, Mother, you know there's a purpose of my birth. And my purpose of birth requires me to leave. And for that, I need your help. Only you can help me. And Kekai says, Ram, what made you think that I can help you? He says, Mother, do you think I am very capable? I am something worthy? He says, Mother, you are the only person who has really loved me to the most. You are my mother that I can trust. You are the mother who can really sacrifice anything for me. And that is why I have chosen you to ask you for this favor. And Kekai happily says, Tell me, Ram. And then Ram requests Kekai that, Mother, this is going to happen, so please do this for me. So now, if you keep this story in mind and now relook at Mother Kekai, what a sacrifice of that lady. The mother who loved Ram the most, the mother who was full of love and affection for everybody. Just because the son, Avatar, demanded certain actions from her, she gave up all her merits. Now, another question. Did she do anything to deserve that? What mistake did she do? Dashrath showed attachment, more. Everybody we can pinpoint and talk about negativities of people. But what did Kekai do? On a physical level, we can say that Kekai depicted, you know, a soft ear, that she could be influenced by the words. That was her weakness. But was it that much of a mistake or a sin for the suffering which Kekai had to go through? For that one night, that one decision of Kekai, look how it changed her life. That she became a reason for Dashrath's death. She became reason for Ram's exile. She lost the love of her only son Bharat. She was cursed and criticized by the whole population, even to such an extent that even till date, none of us want to keep our daughter's name as Keikei. Can you imagine the amount of suffering, the amount of pain, the amount of negativity Keikei had to undergo just for her one day act? Her whole life was beautiful. As a mother, she was beautiful, except for that one night in which Ram himself requests him to do it. But even to keep that aside, can you imagine that person changes for that night? She behaves like that. And then Ram leaves. In actually second day Ram leaves. And immediately Bharat is invited. So Bharat takes 3 days to come. So the second day of Ram's leaving, Dashrath dies because When Sumant leaves Ram and returns, Dashrath breathes his last. And the next day, Bharat arrives. So Dashrath is kept embalmed under the oil to preserve his body. And Bharat comes and performs his rites. And the beauty of narration is that Bharat even does not know the reason what had happened, what has happened. He even does not understand, like, why should Ram go? He was so shell shocked by the events unfolded in Ayodhya that he didn't even get a time to even interact with his mother. He feels something is not right, but he does not even interact with her. He says, I'll talk everybody later. Let me first attend to my father. So when he comes, the father is there, so he performs his last rites. He doesn't understand anything because nobody was daring to tell Bharat what exactly had happened. He even goes to Mother Kaushalya. She also just cries and nothing. She doesn't share much. And he is surprised and shocked, like, why nobody is telling him? Can you imagine Dashrath's pain when he leaves and he comes back, when Sumantra comes back and informs Dashrath, and that is his last. He breathes his last. Imagine Kaikeyi has to undergo all of this pain. And when Bharat comes, Kaikeyi is waiting for Bharat so that she could tell him that, son, now you can be crowned king. He doesn't know anything. And then ultimately Sumantra breaks this news to Bharat. And then Bharat, that also he doesn't break it completely. And then Bharat goes to his mother Kaikeyi. And when he goes to her and he finds her welcoming him, he gets shocked and he says, Mother, what is wrong? When the whole world is crying and in repentance, in condolence, in pain, what are you celebrating? And then the mother Kaikeyi discloses him the whole happening. And that was the last of Bharat. He breaks down and he even curses mother. Says, what is wrong with you? How could you do that? Can you imagine a mother who knows this, that her act will ultimately even result in this? But she accepted that task. And immediately after that, when Bharat refuses, the third day, Bharat starts traveling with whole contingent to Ram. And it is that time when, on a story basis, Kaikeyi realizes her mistake in a physical terms. And she says that, what a blunder has been committed by me. Suma, even Manthara repents and she locks herself into a room. And Kaikeyi very humbly requests that please allow me to join this troop going to Ram so she can ask for forgiveness directly. And Bharat half heartedly permits her to join. So imagine that a mother who loved Ram makes this decision to send Ram away and all that. And in next 48 hours, she again is back to the same old mother. Her negativity, her all shortcomings disappear. Only for 48 hours she was a negative girl, a lady with negative attributes. That 48 hours changed the history. Now looking at it personally, that 48 hours changed Kekai. Can you imagine? Just think of it. Like, how could a person change only for that 24 hours to 48 hours and then back to good? Should it not a logical mind wonder that if somebody goes rogue, they go rogue for long? But how can you go rogue, completely rogue, for 12 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours, and then you are back to normal? This was disclosed by Bhagavan, that it was not actually going rogue, it was actually following the dictums of the god. An utmost sacrifice performed by Mother Kaikeyi. What role Dashrath had to play, what role Kaikeyi had to play. They are not ordinary souls. They have depicted a life par excellence. They have depicted a life of an absolute excellence of superior beings. Yet we find them succumbing to small mistakes, succumbing to small weaknesses of life. And for that weakness, the repercussions are so big that it scares me. Because when I look at these in ourselves, my God, our shortcomings are so big that if they had to suffer so much, God only save us, how much we have to suffer. The beauty of Ramayana is this, that each character has played a role par excellence. So imagine a good being like Dashrath succumbed to one silly mistake and suffered so much that on his death, none of his 4 qualified sons were around him. He didn't even get a proper send off. The man who was glorified as the greatest king ever, who had God as his own son, died alone in suffering, in repentance, in attachment. Did he deserve that? So that is why these stories also open us another understanding to see that what is visible to our naked eyes is not the ultimate truth. There is much more to life than what we see. There is much more to what we can understand. And it is important for us to have a spiritual outlook to understand the nuances of these characters and such epic like Ramayana. Because there is a contradiction right in front of you. How can Kaikeyi, who loved Ram so much, go rogue just for 48 hours and then back? How can Dashrath, who ruled all the 10 senses, succumb to one weakness of moha, attachment to his sons? These are all beautiful contrasts which are flowing in Ramayana. And that reminds us that Ramayana was a divine play. It is a divine play which was done to teach us lessons, which was done to lay down how as a human being, we must live and conduct. That is the beauty of Ramayana. And this is what I find so interesting, that how everything unfolded in Ramayana in such a way. People are so conscious. So imagine Dashrath, how he lives and how he dies. For what mistake? Why should he suffer? But unfortunately, the greatest roles are given to most qualified people. And the people who are close to God, they get the most difficult ones. Probably that is why Pandavas apparently never lived in peace and harmony, or happiness, sorry. Apparently. Because from external view, if you look at it, Pandavas were always suffering. They were always in the forest, they were always suffering, they have been tortured, manipulated. And who was apparently enjoying? Kauravas. But when you look at deep into it from a spiritual eyes to understand the back end, you realize even in the palace, Kauravas were never happy. They were only worried about Pandavas. And Pandavas, even in forest, they were happy because Krishna was with them. And they had good time everywhere they went. They created cities, they created new places. They were instrumental in creating new things, welfare for the whole mankind. But apparently, suffering was given to them. Hardship was given to them. So when I look at Ramayana, I find the greatest personality, the father of Avatar, had the most difficult role. Even though he lived a perfect life, he had to suffer for a message to the world. He had to live a life. It didn't matter then. Kaikeyi, a mother who loved extremely, was an amazing personality, a warrior princess, yet got defamed and denamed because of one requirement. So anything can happen in the divine arena, but the messaging is very important. The moment you fall, even the fall is small, it can lead to dire consequences. Imagine how careful one has to be if you look at Ramayana only from a story perspective to understand how these characters behaved. But Bhagavan wanted us to have another outlook, of a spiritual outlook, to understand without getting biased or judgmental about the character. See, we all learn the lessons of Ramayana, but we treat Kaikeyi as a bad mother, Dashrath as an attached king, suffering because of his weaknesses. But when you look at it from a avataric perspective, from a divine eyes, you realize that these negativities are not actually negativities. They are also controlled behavior. They are done for a cause. And those cause are something divine. They are for the transformation of the generation. They are the events which change the yug. It is like yuga parivartana. If you have to change the movement of the yuga, the eon shifts. It is because of these characters like Dashrath, Kaikeyi, Pandavas, Draupadi. Otherwise, the shift is not possible. And for that shift, God chooses certain characters. Some are lucky to be Arjun, some are lucky to be Lakshmans, and some have to satisfy themselves by being Kaikeyi, Dashrath, Ravan, but none of them are bad. So it is not appropriate to classify and quantify them as bad characters, but they are beautiful characters who played a divine role. They had reached that level that they could accept a negative role and perform it with elegance, with grace, with humility, and with love for God. It is love for God that Dashrath behaved like that. It is love for God that Kaikeyi behaved like that. It is love for God that Bharat behaved like that. It is love for God that Lakshman behaved like that. It is the beauty of that. That is Ramayana for me. That is Ramayana, which describes life in many multifaceted manner. So when I look at Dashrath's life, it is an amazing life of a father, yet a challenge of a father. So they accepted that role, they accepted that suffering because of their love for the divine. So today we started this journey again, and there are many facets to it. Unfortunately, my brother Raju had some internet issue and he couldn't join us today. Hopefully, in the future, we'll have a little better connection. So I think we'll close it today. If anybody has any thoughts, any questions, people who are joining us here, if you, I appreciate your feedback. But if you have any thoughts, any questions that you want to share or ask for this episode, you're welcome to pen it down. Otherwise, we'll conclude it earlier this evening. And because this is a very beautiful thought, I don't want to dilute it with other stories, but I hope we can carry this beautiful feeling of when avatar comes, what he does. Let me, if you have any questions, you can say, otherwise I'll just close with the thought of Bhagwan. You know, there are occasions, I'll not name the person. Once what happened was we had a person with a musical talent who was invited to the college and was in fact asked to teach also. And obviously a man of the world, he was the cultural ambassador to a few countries also from India. And he was there. Bhagwan had invited him, and long story short, he was there one day. He was about to start the bhajans, and Bhagwan came to the bhajan hall, and he looked at one student sitting there, who was also a very good musician, who plays harmonium, sings very beautifully. He's got innumerable, bhajans to his credit. And suddenly Bhagwan came and started scolding this boy, and the scolding was loud and clear, so everybody in the proximity could hear Swami. And Bhagwan was scolding him that you are a bad boy. What is the point of coming to Bhagwan and still not changing? And I don't like it. And Swami went on to even say that you have a bad habit, you keep smoking, you don't leave smoking also. And do you think that when you smoke, I don't know? And this boy is wondering, like, when did I smoke? So the beauty was that he has got no clue of why he's getting scolded. He doesn't smoke. Obviously, as a student, you don't have that, you are very careful, and that too when you are so close to Bhagwan in a physical sense and you are singing for Swami. So obviously, these things don't happen, but he couldn't figure out. But when Swami is scolding you, then obviously you got to be serious and you had to accept it. And he was politely, like, looking down and accepting what Bhagwan was showering. And look at the joke of it. Everybody around who is listening to Bhagwan thinks, obviously, Bhagwan can't be, he can't lie. So if Swami is telling him that he smokes, he must be smoking. So imagine he's getting a bad name. Everybody's looking at him with suspicion. And he's totally lost that as to why is he getting shouted at for no rhyme or reason. Everything was going fine. He comes and sits every day. He sings bhajan every day. So today what happened? So for 10 minutes, Swami Bhagwan scolded him, left, right, and center he gave him. And he says, last warning, he told him like that, and he walked out. He went to his room. And this boy had no, idea as to why he got scolded. And everybody else is looking at him with suspicion now. So he was just sulking down, and he was looked down. And in few seconds, one hand patted him, and he looked up. That was a gentleman who was a music teacher sitting next to him. And he very politely whispered to him, he says, son, I'm sorry that you had to hear all of that, but it was not for you. All that Bhagwan was saying was for me. I got the message. He was actually scolding me, but I don't know why he didn't look at me, thankfully, but you got it. So please don't take it personally. And this boy, when he heard that, he felt relaxed. He said, okay, now I know what Bhagwan was doing. And with association with Bhagwan, boys learn that Bhagwan can do few things which unfolds in due course. But for him, luckily, it unfolded right at that moment. Now, when you take this story, there are a lot of things to learn. When I was a student also, I've seen many times we used to make this mistake that if Bhagwan is talking to somebody, we would say, oh, he's a great boy, or he's doing his sadhanas well. People would comment like that and feel that everything is fine with him, that Bhagwan is talking. And if Bhagwan stops talking to somebody or he scolds somebody, we look down upon him and he says, oh, something is wrong with this guy. We didn't realize that Bhagwan's style of doing things was different. How avatar works is very different than what humans do. So for him, the scolding which he gave to this boy because he knew very well that this son of his will never respond back, will never give up. This son is sealed for him forever. And that confidence of God in that child was reflected in this manner. That because Swami knew very well that if he scolded that gentleman directly, the gentleman would have disappeared from that Puttaparthi itself. He would have left the whole path of spirituality. Probably he would have even disowned Sai Baba. Anything would be possible. But when Bhagwan indirectly hit him, he got the message. His respect in the society was still alive. So he doesn't have to shy away and hide his face. So he was an improvement on the process. Whereas this child who got scolded by Bhagwan, his love for Swami never stopped. In fact, his penance might have increased because he realized that Swami has pointed something to him also, that there must be something off in me. And that scolding might have made him think Swami more. But because of his love for Bhagwan, he didn't care how others would feel for him, how others may react. Many people did not look at him, talk to him for a few days, till Swami again talked to him and smiled at him, and everybody was back to normal. So Bhagwan can do anything, but look at the process in which he did it. So on one hand, he conveyed the message to somebody who was on the path of spirituality, who did not need to deviate, and whose face saving was done because he needed that face saving at that stage of his life. But when it came to his own child, his own students, his own boy, where Swami felt so comfortable that he could do anything he wanted with that boy. And he was sure that this boy would not react. He was 100% sure that this boy would not deviate. It was his. See, when I think of it, I admire that boy for that reason, that at least he had qualified to that extent with Avatar, that Avatar felt that that boy was his. What more acknowledgement or credentials do we want from Avatar? So when you look at these things, that how he encouraged Kaikeyi mother to do something, how he motivated Dashrath to do certain things, it is not easy. That's why to be the close parents of an avatar, to be close devotee of an avatar, to find a role which brings you closer to the avatar is the most delicate, difficult, and hard. But when the focus is God, then nothing is difficult. I hope you enjoyed this story, this episode, and thank you very much. And if there's any thought, any suggestions, please feel free, and we will continue this journey of Ram in the weeks to come. Thank you, and grateful to Bhagwan for it. Thank you all for everybody. Sai Ram. Om Shri Sai Ram.